There comes a moment in every generation when someone chooses not to react, but to respond with purpose. And in that moment, everything shifts. Because power is not in raising your voice. Power is in holding your ground when everyone expects you to step back. What you witnessed wasn't just a response, it was a reminder that when you know who you are, you don't need validation from anyone else. You don't need to prove your worth in someone else's language. You simply stand and let truth do the work. Too often, people confuse confidence with aggression. They think strength means overpowering others, but real strength is quiet, it's controlled, it's deliberate. It's the ability to say exactly what needs to be said, and nothing more. And when that truth lands, it doesn't just silence a room, it reshapes it. Because truth has weight. It carries history, identity, and conviction. And when it's delivered with clarity, it forces people to confront something deeper than disagreement. It forces them to confront reality. But here's the thing most people miss. Moments like these are not created overnight. They are built over years of discipline, years of understanding your position in the world, years of refusing to be distracted by noise, by pressure, by the need to impress. That's why when the moment comes, there's no hesitation, there's no anger, there's no need to attack, there's only precision. And that precision is what makes it powerful, because when you speak from a place of certainty, you don't just win an argument, you shift perception. You redefine the narrative. You remind everyone watching that respect is not given to those who demand it. It's given to those who demonstrate it consistently, without compromise. And here's where it becomes bigger than just one moment. Because this isn't about one exchange, it's about a mindset that refuses to shrink. A mindset that understands that the world will test you, not once, but again and again. And each time, you have a choice. You can react emotionally, or you can respond with clarity. You can seek approval, or you can stand in truth. You can follow the noise, or you can become the signal. The people who change the game are not the loudest in the room. They are the ones who speak when it matters. And when they do, everyone listens, not because they're forced to, but because they can't ignore it. So the question is not whether moments like this will happen again. They will. The real question is, when your moment comes, will you be ready? Will you have the clarity to stand firm? Will you have the discipline to stay calm? Will you have the courage to speak truth without fear? Because in the end, it's not about shutting someone down. It's about standing so firmly in who you are that nothing can shake you. And that's where real power begins. There's a difference between people who move with direction and those who move with noise. The difference is not talent, not opportunity, not even intelligence. It is identity. When you know exactly who you are, your decisions become faster, your focus becomes sharper, and your presence becomes undeniable. Without clarity, even the strongest effort gets scattered. With clarity, even a small step carries power. Most people spend their lives reacting. They adjust based on opinions, trends, pressure, and fear. One day they sound confident, the next day they doubt everything. Not because they lack ability, but because they lack definition. When identity is unclear, the world writes the script for you. And the world is inconsistent. It rewards today and ignores tomorrow. It praises one thing and criticizes the same thing later. If you depend on that, you will constantly shift, constantly question, constantly shrink. Clarity of identity changes that completely. It gives you a center, a place to stand when everything around you moves. It removes the need to chase validation because you already understand your value. You stop asking, what do they think, and start asking, does this align with who I am? That single shift eliminates confusion faster than any advice ever could. Strong individuals are not built by accident. They are built through deliberate understanding. They spend time defining what they stand for, what they reject, and what they refuse to compromise. This is not loud work. It is quiet, internal, often uncomfortable. It requires honesty. It requires facing contradictions. It requires removing the versions of yourself that were created just to fit in. And once that clarity is built, something changes in how you move. You become consistent. Not perfect, but consistent. Your words match your actions. Your decisions reflect your priorities. People begin to trust you, not because you demand it, but because they can predict your principles. Consistency is what turns identity into credibility. Clarity also removes unnecessary conflict. When you know who you are, you don't engage in every argument. You don't feel threatened by every disagreement. You don't need to prove yourself in every room. You choose your moments carefully because you understand that energy is limited and attention is valuable. This restraint is often mistaken for weakness, but it is actually control. In environments filled with noise, clarity stands out immediately. While others rush to respond, you take a second to think. While others try to impress, you focus on impact. While others adapt to pressure, you anchor into purpose. This creates a different kind of presence, not loud, not aggressive, but firm. And firmness is what commands respect over time. Identity is not built once and then left alone. It evolves, but it evolves with intention. Every experience either strengthens it or challenges it. The key is to remain aware, to constantly check whether your actions still align with your core. Because the moment you drift too far, confusion returns. And confusion is costly, wastes time, breaks confidence, and weakens direction. Clarity of identity is not about limiting yourself. It is about unlocking precision. It allows you to move with confidence even in uncertainty. It allows you to stand firm even when challenged. It allows you to speak with weight because your words come from understanding, not impulse. There is a kind of strength that makes noise, and there is a kind of strength that makes impact. Most people confuse the two. They think power is visible in raised voices, fast reactions, and dominant gestures. But real strength operates differently. It is controlled, measured, and intentional. It does not rush to prove itself because it does not need to. Calmness is not the absence of pressure. It is the mastery of it. When tension rises, when emotions peak, when expectations collide, the natural instinct is to react, to defend, to argue, to overpower. But those who understand strength pause in that moment. They create space between stimulus and response. And in that space, they choose clarity over chaos. This is not easy. Calmness requires discipline. It requires you to manage your internal state when everything around you is trying to disrupt it. It demands awareness of your thoughts, control over your emotions, and the ability to stay grounded even when challenged directly. Most people never develop this because reacting feels faster and easier, but easy reactions often lead to weak outcomes. When you remain calm, you gain an advantage that others cannot see. You begin to observe instead of absorb. You notice patterns, intentions, and gaps that are invisible to those caught in emotion. This awareness allows you to respond with precision, and precision carries more weight than volume ever will. Calmness also communicates confidence without saying a word. When you are not shaken by pressure, people sense it immediately. They realize that you are not dependent on the situation to feel in control. You bring your own control into the situation. That shifts the dynamic. It changes how others approach you, how they speak to you, and how seriously they take your words. There is also a deeper layer to this. Calmness protects your energy. In a world full of constant noise, distractions, and unnecessary conflict, reacting to everything drains you. It pulls your focus away from what actually matters. But when you choose calmness, you become selective. You decide what deserves your attention and what does not. This selectivity is what keeps you effective over time. People often mistake calmness for passivity. They assume that if you are not reacting, you are not strong, but calmness is not about avoiding action. It is about choosing the right action at the right time. It is about understanding that timing can amplify impact. A delayed response, delivered with clarity, can be far more powerful than an immediate reaction driven by emotion. Calmness also builds trust. When people know that you do not react unpredictably, they feel more secure around you. They know that your responses are thoughtful, not impulsive. This reliability becomes a foundation for influence, because influence is not built on occasional intensity, it is built on consistent control. In high-pressure moments, calmness becomes even more valuable. This is where most people lose balance. Their emotions take over, their thinking becomes scattered, and their decisions become reactive. But if you have trained yourself to stay calm, you move differently. You slow the moment down. You process clearly. You act with intention, and that difference often determines the outcome. Developing calmness is a continuous process. It is built through repetition, awareness, and reflection. Every challenging situation becomes an opportunity to strengthen it. Each time you choose control over reaction, you reinforce that ability. Over time, it becomes natural, not forced, not artificial, but part of how you operate. Strength in calmness is not about suppressing emotion. It is about directing it. It is about understanding that emotions are signals, not commands. You acknowledge them, but you do not let them control your actions. This balance is what creates stability. And stability is what allows you to lead, to decide, and to move forward with confidence. There is a silent trade most people make without realizing it. They exchange truth for approval, not once, not twice, but consistently in small moments that slowly shape who they become. They adjust their words, soften their stance, and filter their thoughts, not because they lack understanding, but because they fear rejection. And over time, that fear becomes a habit. Approval feels safe. It gives immediate validation. It creates a sense of belonging. But it comes at a cost. The more you rely on it, the less you trust your own voice. You begin to measure your worth by reactions, by applause, by acceptance, and when that approval disappears, so does your confidence. Truth operates differently. It does not guarantee comfort. It does not promise applause. In fact, it often creates tension. It challenges assumptions, disrupts expectations, and forces people to confront ideas they would rather avoid. This is why many choose approval instead. It is easier to be accepted than to be accurate. But accuracy builds strength. When you commit to truth, you develop internal alignment. Your thoughts, your words, and your actions begin to match. There is no internal conflict, no constant adjustment to fit external expectations. This alignment creates clarity, and clarity creates confidence that does not depend on anyone else's reaction. Speaking truth requires courage. Not dramatic courage, but consistent courage. The kind that shows up in everyday conversations. The kind that chooses honesty over convenience. It is the decision to say what needs to be said, even when it risks disagreement. Not to provoke, not to dominate, but to remain authentic. There is also responsibility in truth. It is not about being blunt or careless. It is about being precise. The goal is not to hurt, but to communicate clearly. When truth is delivered with intention, it becomes constructive. It opens dialogue instead of shutting it down. It invites understanding instead of creating unnecessary conflict. Approval-driven behavior, on the other hand, leads to inconsistency. You say one thing in one room and something different in another. You adjust based on who is listening. This creates confusion, not just for others, but for yourself. You lose track of what you actually believe. And without that foundation, every decision becomes uncertain. When you choose truth, something shifts in how people perceive you. Not everyone will agree, not everyone will support you, but those who value clarity will respect you, because consistency is rare. And when people know where you stand, they know how to engage with you. That predictability builds credibility over time. There is also a long-term advantage to truth. Approval is temporary. It changes with circumstances, trends, and opinions. What is praised today can be criticized tomorrow. But truth, when grounded in understanding, remains stable. It gives you a reference point that does not move with every shift in external pressure. In difficult situations, this difference becomes clear. When stakes are high and pressure increases, those driven by approval hesitate. They calculate reactions, weigh risks, and often remain silent. But those committed to truth move with clarity. They focus on what is right, not what is popular. And that clarity allows them to act decisively. Choosing truth does not mean you will always be right. It means you are willing to be honest about what you know and open about what you do not. It creates space for growth, because when you are not hiding behind approval, you can evaluate feedback objectively. You can adjust without losing your core. Over time, truth becomes a stabilizing force. It reduces noise, eliminates unnecessary doubt, and strengthens your ability to navigate complexity. You stop chasing acceptance and start building integrity. And integrity, once established, becomes one of the strongest forms of influence. Most people are trained to chase what is immediate. Quick results, fast recognition, instant validation. The world rewards speed on the surface, so it becomes natural to believe that faster always means better. But the strongest outcomes are rarely built that way. They are built slowly, deliberately, and often without attention. In the beginning, long-term thinking shifts your entire perspective. It forces you to move beyond the urgency of now and consider the impact of later. It asks a different question, not what works today, but what will still matter tomorrow. That question alone filters out distractions, reduces impulsive decisions, and strengthens focus. Short-term thinking is reactive. It responds to pressure, to trends, to expectations that change constantly. It creates cycles of effort that start strong and fade quickly. You see movement, but you do not see depth. And without depth, progress remains fragile. Long-term thinking creates stability. It is built on patience, but not passive patience. It is active, intentional, and consistent. It requires you to take action even when results are not visible. It demands that you trust the process before the outcome appears. That level of discipline is rare because most people want proof before they commit. When you think long-term, your decisions become more precise. You stop chasing every opportunity and start selecting the right ones. You understand that not everything that looks good now will be valuable later. This clarity protects your time, your energy, and your attention. It allows you to invest in what compounds rather than what fades. Compounding is the hidden force behind long-term success. Small actions repeated consistently begin to multiply. Skills improve, relationships deepen, credibility strengthens. None of this is immediate, which is why it is often ignored. But over time, it creates results that cannot be replicated through shortcuts. Long-term thinking also changes how you handle challenges. Instead of reacting to setbacks as failures, you interpret them as part of the process. You understand that progress is not linear. There will be delays, obstacles, and moments of doubt. But these moments do not define the outcome, they refine it. This mindset reduces emotional volatility. When your focus is extended over time, short-term fluctuations lose their power. A bad day does not derail you. A temporary setback does not discourage you. You remain steady because your vision is larger than the moment. There is also a strategic advantage in long-term thinking. While others compete for immediate attention, you build quietly. While others seek quick wins, you strengthen foundations. And when time passes, the difference becomes clear. What looks slow at the beginning becomes unstoppable later. Consistency becomes your strongest tool. Not intense bursts of effort, but steady, repeatable action. This kind of consistency is not dependent on motivation. It is built on commitment. You show up, you execute, you improve, over and over again. And each cycle adds another layer of strength. Long-term thinking requires clarity of direction. Without a clear vision, it is easy to drift. You need to know what you are building and why it matters. That purpose becomes your anchor. It keeps you aligned when distractions appear, and when progress feels slow, it also requires restraint. The ability to say no to what does not align, the ability to delay gratification, the ability to ignore noise that pulls you away from your path. This restraint is often misunderstood, but it is essential, because every distraction avoided is energy preserved for what truly matters. Over time, long-term thinking transforms how you operate. You become less reactive and more intentional. You prioritize depth over speed. You value sustainability over quick results. And this shift creates a different kind of progress, one that is not easily shaken, not easily replaced, and not easily ignored. There is a fundamental misunderstanding that shapes how many people approach authority. They believe respect comes from position, from titles, from the ability to control outcomes. They assume that if they speak loudly enough or assert themselves strongly enough, respect will follow. But respect does not respond to force. It responds to consistency. Demanding respect may create compliance, but it does not create trust. People may listen in the moment, but they do not believe. They may follow instructions, but they do not feel aligned. And without alignment, respect remains surface level, temporary, and fragile. Earning respect is a different process. It is slower, less visible at the beginning, and often tested over time. It is built through repeated actions that demonstrate reliability, not once, not occasionally, but consistently. It is the alignment between what you say and what you do. When those two match, people begin to notice, and over time they begin to trust. Consistency is what separates authority from influence. Authority can be given instantly. Influence must be developed, and influence is what sustains respect. Because when people respect you, they do not just respond to your presence, they respond to your character. Character is revealed in small moments, in how you handle pressure, in how you respond to disagreement, in how you treat people who cannot offer you anything in return. These moments may seem insignificant, but they accumulate, they create a pattern, and that pattern becomes your reputation. Respect also requires fairness. People observe how decisions are made. They notice whether you apply the same standards to everyone or shift them based on convenience. When fairness is consistent, it builds credibility. When it is inconsistent, it creates doubt. And doubt weakens respect faster than anything else. There is also a level of accountability involved. Earning respect means taking responsibility, especially when things go wrong. It means acknowledging mistakes without deflecting blame. This does not reduce your authority, it strengthens it. Because honesty signals confidence, and confidence reinforces trust. Demanding respect often comes from insecurity. It is an attempt to control perception without building substance. It focuses on appearance rather than foundation. But perception without foundation does not last. It collapses under pressure because it has nothing real to support it. Earning respect, on the other hand, is grounded. It does not rely on external validation. It is built internally and reflected externally. It is not affected by temporary opinions because it is supported by consistent behavior. This stability makes it resilient. Respect also grows through listening, not passive listening, but active understanding. When people feel heard, they become more open, they engage more honestly. And this creates a stronger connection. That connection becomes a bridge for influence. Because respect is not just about being followed, it is about being understood. Over time, respect creates a different kind of environment. Communication becomes clearer, expectations become aligned, trust reduces friction. This makes collaboration more effective and decisions more impactful. Because when respect is present, energy is not wasted on doubt or resistance. There is a discipline in earning respect. It requires patience. It requires consistency, even when results are not immediate. It requires maintaining standards, even when it would be easier to lower them. This discipline is what separates temporary authority from lasting influence. Respect is not something you ask for, it is something you demonstrate. It is reflected in how you show up, how you act, and how you respond. It is built through actions that speak louder than any demand ever could. There are moments when the room goes quiet, not because there's nothing to say, but because no one wants to be the one to say it. In those moments, the pressure is not external, it is internal. The hesitation, the calculation, the awareness that speaking up may separate you from the group. And most people choose comfort. They choose agreement, even when it conflicts with what they know. Standing alone is not about isolation. It is about alignment. It is the decision to stay true to your understanding, even when it is not supported. This requires a different kind of courage, not the visible kind that seeks recognition, but the quiet kind that accepts consequence. The fear of standing alone is rooted in something fundamental. The need to belong, to be accepted, to be part of a group that validates your position. This need is powerful, and it often overrides judgment. People adjust their views, soften their stance, or remain silent to avoid friction. And in doing so, they lose clarity. Courage interrupts that pattern. It creates a pause between what is expected and what is right. It forces a decision. Follow the group or follow your understanding. That decision is rarely easy because the outcome is uncertain. Approval may disappear, support may fade, resistance may increase, but standing alone builds something that cannot be developed any other way. It builds self-trust. When you act in alignment with your principles, despite opposition, you reinforce your ability to rely on yourself. This trust becomes a foundation. It strengthens your confidence, not because others agree, but because you know you are consistent. There is also a clarity that comes with standing alone. Without the noise of group influence, your thinking becomes sharper. You are not adjusting to fit. You are evaluating to understand. This independence allows you to see what others may miss. It creates perspective that is not shaped by pressure. Standing alone does not mean rejecting all input. It means filtering it. You listen, you consider, but you decide based on your principles. This distinction is important because courage is not stubbornness. It is not refusing to change. It is the ability to change when necessary, but not because you are forced to. Resistance is often a part of this process. When you take a different position, it challenges others. It disrupts the comfort of agreement, and that disruption can create pushback. This is where consistency matters. If your position is stable, if your reasoning is clear, that resistance begins to shift over time.
Many of the ideas that eventually shape progress begin with a single voice. Not a loud voice, not an aggressive one,
But a clear one, a voice that does not move under pressure. That clarity creates attention, and attention creates space for others to reconsider. There is also a discipline required to stand alone. It is not a one-time act. It is repeated in different forms, in different situations. Each time you choose alignment over comfort, you strengthen that ability. Each time you hold your position with clarity, you reinforce your identity. Over time, something changes in how others perceive you. Even if they do not agree, they recognize your consistency. They understand that your position is not temporary. And that recognition builds respect, not immediate, not always visible, but real. Standing alone also reduces dependence. You are not waiting for approval to act. You are not measuring your decisions based on reactions. This independence creates freedom, the freedom to think, to speak, and to act with intention. Courage to stand alone is not about being separate from others. It is about being grounded within yourself. It is the ability to remain steady when alignment is challenged. It is the strength to move forward without needing constant validation. And that strength becomes a defining part of how you lead, decide, and grow.